Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. Let me start by saying I never thought I'd be dealing with homeowner association drama, especially since I don't even belong to one. This all started about 6 months ago when my wife and I purchased our dream home, a beautiful 1920s craftsman-style house sitting on just under an acre of land. The property backs up to a newer planned community, but our lot was specifically excluded from their development since the original owner refused to sell when they built the subdivision 15 years ago. We did extensive research before buying and confirmed with both our real estate agent and lawyer that our property was completely independent and not subject to any homeowner association restrictions. This was important to us because I run a small woodworking business from my detached garage/workshop, and most homeowner associations prohibit home-based businesses. We also wanted the freedom to landscape and maintain our property as we saw fit. The first couple months were perfect. We repainted the exterior a warm sage green, which would have never been approved by the homeowner association's strict beige-only policy, started a vegetable garden, and I set up my workshop. I was finally living my dream of working from home doing what I love. Then came the first note. It was a printed letter stuck in our mailbox, which I'm pretty sure is illegal, from someone named Karen Thompson, identifying herself as the president of the Oakwood Estates Homeowners Association. The letter informed us that there had been multiple complaints about the industrial activities taking place in our garage and demanded we cease all business operations immediately as they violated homeowner association bylaws. I actually laughed when I read it and filed it away, figuring it was just a misunderstanding that would be easily cleared up. I wrote a polite response explaining that our property wasn't part of their homeowner association and included copies of our deed and property records clearly showing this fact. I thought that would be the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. A week later, I got another letter, this time threatening fines for unauthorized exterior paint colors and unapproved landscaping modifications. Again, I responded with documentation proving we weren't homeowner association members. This time I also included a firmly worded request to stop harassing us. Then things started getting weird. I began noticing people taking photos of our house from the street. Someone was clearly walking around our property when we weren't home, leaving behind footprints in our garden. The final straw came when I installed security cameras and caught Karen herself trying to peek through our workshop windows one afternoon. I confronted her immediately, walking out and asking what she thought she was doing. "I'm conducting a routine community inspection," she said, acting like this was completely normal behavior. "We've received numerous complaints about this property." "Ma'am, you're trespassing," I replied firmly. "This property is not part of your homeowner association, and you have no right to be here. Please leave immediately." Karen drew herself up to her full height, which wasn't much, and pulled out her phone. "I am the president of the Oakwood Estates Homeowner Association. All properties in this area are under our jurisdiction. If you continue to be uncooperative, I'll be forced to call the police." "Please do," I said with a smile. "I'd love to file a trespassing report." She sputtered for a moment before storming off, but I knew this wasn't over. I immediately called our lawyer and started documenting everything. Sure enough, 3 days later, I received a certified letter from the homeowner association's attorney threatening legal action if we didn't immediately comply with their regulations. They claimed our property was automatically incorporated into their homeowner association when the subdivision was built, regardless of the previous owner's refusal to join. This is where things got interesting. Our lawyer discovered that the homeowner association had actually tried this same tactic with the previous owner years ago and lost. There was already a court decision on record specifically excluding our property from their jurisdiction. Not only that, but Karen and the homeowner association board had been fully aware of this fact the entire time. We filed for a restraining order and sent a cease and desist letter. The homeowner association's attorney must have finally done his homework because they backed off. For about 2 weeks. Then came the incident that finally pushed me over the edge. I was in my workshop one afternoon when I heard the distinct sound of a lock being tampered with. I checked my security camera feed on my phone and saw Karen and 2 other homeowner association board members attempting to enter my backyard through the gate. They had some kind of tool that looked like they were trying to pick the lock. I immediately called the police and started recording on my phone as I walked outside. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" I asked, causing them to jump guiltily. Karen recovered quickly, putting on her most authoritative voice. "We're conducting an emergency inspection. We've received reports of dangerous activities taking place on this property." "Really?" I kept recording as they tried to block the lock from view. "Because it looks like you're attempting to break and enter. The police are on their way, by the way." "We have every right to inspect properties within our jurisdiction," one of the other board members insisted. "If you had nothing to hide, you wouldn't be so difficult about this." "For the last time, I am not in your homeowner association. I said firmly. You are currently attempting to break into private property. Either leave now or explain yourselves to the police. They chose to leave, but not before Karen turned and said, "This isn't over. We will not allow you to destroy our community's property values with your activities." The police arrived a few minutes later. I showed them the security footage and filed a report. Given the previous harassment and the restraining order, they took it very seriously. Karen and her accomplices were actually arrested for attempted breaking and entering. This led to a fascinating chain of events. Other homeowners in the homeowner association, hearing about what happened, started digging into the homeowner association's activities. It turned out Karen and several board members had been using homeowner association funds for personal expenses and selectively enforcing rules based on personal vendettas. They'd been getting away with it for years because no one had bothered to challenge them. The scandal resulted in the entire board being removed and criminal charges being filed for financial misconduct. Karen and her fellow board members are now facing multiple lawsuits from their own homeowner association members, and I heard she had to put her house up for sale because she could no longer show her face in the neighborhood. As for us, we got a much nicer set of neighbors when the new homeowner association board was elected. They officially acknowledged in writing that our property is independent and even apologized for the previous board's behavior. I still keep the security cameras up though, just in case. The best part? Karen's house, which is right across from ours, was purchased by a lovely family who regularly compliment my woodworking and have even commissioned several pieces from me. They also painted their house a beautiful forest green, which was approved by the new, more reasonable homeowner association board. Sometimes I see Karen driving past slowly, glaring at her old house's new paint job, and I just wave cheerfully while working in my very non-homeowner association approved garden. The legal aftermath was quite extensive. The district attorney's office took a special interest in the case because it revealed a pattern of harassment and abuse of power. They discovered that Karen and her board had been using similar tactics to bully several other homeowners, including elderly residents who didn't know their rights or couldn't afford legal representation. The criminal charges included attempted breaking and entering, criminal harassment, misappropriation of homeowner association funds, mail fraud, remember those illegal mailbox deliveries? Criminal conspiracy. The civil suits were even more interesting. Multiple homeowners came forward with similar stories of harassment and selective enforcement. One elderly couple had been fined thousands of dollars for unapproved modifications that were actually necessary accessibility improvements for their disabled son. Another family had been threatened with foreclosure because their Christmas decorations stayed up 3 days past the allowed date, while board members' decorations remained up for months without consequence. Our lawyer helped organize a class action lawsuit on behalf of the affected homeowners. The evidence was overwhelming. Years of financial records showing misappropriated funds. Documentation of selective rule enforcement. Emails between board members discussing their targeting of specific homeowners. Security footage from multiple properties showing harassment and trespassing. Audio recordings of threatening phone calls. The case was settled out of court for a substantial sum, most of which went to reimburse homeowners who had been wrongfully fined or forced to make unnecessary modifications to their properties. The settlement also required the homeowner association to implement new bylaws preventing future abuse of power, including required annual audits by an independent firm, term limits for board members, a formal appeals process for all violations, mandatory recording of all board meetings, clear documentation of all inspection procedures, professional property management oversight. Karen and her fellow board members were personally liable for a portion of the settlement since their actions were found to be outside the scope of their official duties. They were also banned from serving on any homeowner association board in the state. The criminal cases are still ongoing, but Karen accepted a plea deal that included 2 years probation, significant community service hours, mandatory restitution payments, a restraining order keeping her away from multiple properties, including ours. The whole experience actually led to positive changes in state law. Our case caught the attention of a state representative who introduced legislation requiring more oversight of homeowner associations and better protections for homeowners. The Right to Garden Act, as local media dubbed it, passed with broad bipartisan support. My woodworking business has actually grown throughout all this. The publicity brought in new customers, and I now have a waiting list for custom pieces. I've even started teaching weekend workshops for other aspiring woodworkers, which would have never been allowed under the old homeowner association rules for the neighboring properties. Last week, I installed a custom-built little free library at the entrance to our property, decorated with carved woodland creatures and painted in several decidedly non-homeowner association-approved colors. The new board president stopped by to admire it and even asked if I could make one for the community center. Looking back, I'm grateful we stood our ground. It would have been easier to give in to their demands or even sell the house and move, but fighting back not only protected our rights but helped expose and stop systemic abuse that had been going on for years. The moral of the story? Know your rights, document everything, and don't let anyone bully you, even if they claim to have authority over you. And maybe invest in some good security cameras. Oh, and if you're wondering about Karen, last I heard, she moved to a condo building with no homeowner association. Apparently, she's now very passionate about property owners' rights. Funny how that works out, isn't it? Update. It's been 2 years since my original post about the homeowner association nightmare, and a lot has happened that I think you'll find interesting. First, the criminal case is finally concluded. Karen and 2 other board members were convicted on multiple charges. The plea deals they accepted seemed light at first, but the conditions turned out to have real teeth. Besides the probation and community service I mentioned before, they were ordered to pay substantial restitution to the homeowner association and affected homeowners. Karen tried to declare bankruptcy to avoid paying, but the court ruled the restitution non-dischargeable since it resulted from willful and malicious actions. She ended up having to sell her expensive cars and downsize significantly. The judge also mandated that all 3 former board members take courses in property law and ethics, which I found deliciously ironic. The class action lawsuit revealed even more than we initially knew. During discovery, we found out that Karen and the board had been running what amounted to a kickback scheme with certain contractors. They would force homeowners to make unnecessary repairs or modifications, then steer the work to specific companies that were overcharging and splitting the excess with board members. The FBI actually got involved because it crossed state lines when they were moving money around to hide it. This led to additional charges and civil penalties. More importantly, it sparked investigations of several other homeowner associations in the area where these same contractors had been operating. Turned out our case was just the tip of the iceberg. 3 other homeowner association boards in neighboring communities were found to be running similar schemes. The Right to Garden Act one mentioned has had a huge impact. It not only protected homeowners' rights to grow vegetables and maintain natural landscaping, but it also established clear limits on homeowner association powers and mandatory oversight procedures. Several other states are now using it as a model for their own legislation. Here's where it gets really interesting. My wife and I ended up becoming unexpected advocates for homeowner association reform. The lawyer who handled our case connected us with a homeowners' rights organization, and we've been sharing our story at various events and workshops. We're not public speakers by any means, but people really respond to hearing about real experiences. My woodworking business has evolved in an unexpected way too. Remember those weekend workshops I started? They became so popular that I had to expand. I bought the vacant lot next to our property, which also wasn't part of the homeowner association, and built a proper teaching studio. The new homeowner association board actually helped us get the permits sorted out because they saw how it was benefiting the whole community. One of my favorite developments was starting a program teaching basic woodworking skills to at-risk youth. The irony isn't lost on me that this would have been completely forbidden under Karen's regime. We've had several students go on to start their own businesses or enter trade school programs. The new homeowner association board has become a model for how these organizations should actually work. They focus on maintaining property values through positive community building rather than punitive enforcement. They even started an annual neighborhood festival where local artisans, including myself, can showcase their work. But the most satisfying part of this update involves Karen herself. Remember how she moved to that condo with no homeowner association? Well, she tried to start an unofficial residents association there and got shut down hard when other owners discovered her history. Someone had posted our original story in the building's Facebook group, and it went viral among the residents. She actually tried to sue me for defamation, claiming my original post had ruined her life. Her lawyer must have taken one look at the evidence and told her she didn't have a case because she withdrew the suit before we even had to respond. My lawyer said the retraction letter she had to sign was one of the most comprehensive he'd ever seen. The contractors involved in the kickback scheme didn't fare well either. The state licensing board suspended or revoked several licenses, and 2 companies ended up closing down completely. One owner tried to restart under a new name, but the mandatory disclosure requirements in the new law made that impossible. I mentioned the FBI investigation earlier. It led to a broader probe into homeowner association fraud across several states. They found similar patterns of abuse and corruption in dozens of communities. Our case was actually cited in their report to Congress about the need for better oversight of homeowner association governance. The financial impact on the corrupt board members was significant. Besides the criminal penalties and civil judgments, they were also hit with tax liens because they hadn't reported any of their illegal income. The IRS is not an agency you want to upset, and they went after them hard. On a personal note, our property has become something of a local landmark. The garden has flourished into a demonstration plot for sustainable urban agriculture. Local schools bring students for field trips to learn about growing food and woodworking. Even the city council has recognized our contribution to the community. The little free library I built has spawned a whole network of them throughout the neighborhood. I've built and installed 12 more, each unique and decorated to reflect its location. They've become gathering spots where neighbors actually talk to each other instead of filing complaints. Karen's old house, now owned by my customers turned friends, has become a showcase for my work. They've commissioned several pieces for their home and garden, and they regularly host social events where people can see what's possible when creativity isn't stifled by unreasonable restrictions. Last month, I received an unexpected letter. It was from one of the other former board members who had served time for their role in the scheme. Unlike Karen, this person seemed to have genuinely reflected on their actions. They apologized for their part in the harassment and shared that watching our community's positive transformation had helped them understand the damage their previous approach had caused. The new state laws have had real impact. Homeowner associations are now required to have independent audits, term limits for board members, and professional management oversight. All meetings must be recorded and minutes made available to members. Fines and enforcement actions require documentation and due process. Most importantly, there's now a state board that oversees homeowner associations and investigates complaints. Our lawyer still gets calls from people dealing with homeowner association issues, and he often uses our case as an example of how to fight back effectively. The key lessons he shares are: document everything. Know your rights and property boundaries. Don't be intimidated by false authority. Build community support. Be prepared for a long fight. The security cameras that caught Karen's attempted break-in are still up, though they haven't been needed for homeowner association issues in a long time. They did help catch a package thief last year, but that's another story. I sometimes reflect on how differently things could have gone if we'd given in to the initial harassment. Standing up to bullies isn't easy, but it's often necessary not just for yourself but for others who might be suffering silently. The most recent development? Our story is being included in a textbook about property law and homeowners' rights. The author interviewed us last month, and it was surreal hearing our experience described as a landmark case in homeowner association reform. Karen still drives by occasionally, but now she's the one who has to follow rules she can't control. Sometimes justice does work out exactly as it should. As for me, I'm just happy to be doing what I love, helping others learn useful skills, and living in a community that values creativity and cooperation over conformity and control. The homeowner association nightmare turned into an opportunity for positive change, and I couldn't be more satisfied with how it all turned out. The next one is entitled People Story. My boyfriend, Lee, and I have been together for 2 years. We've been living together for 1. Before we moved in together, he was living with a friend from work, Kim. In the very beginning of our relationship, 1 to 2 months in, I was approached by a lot of his coworkers telling me that Lee and Kim used to hook up a lot. That, of course, made me feel uncomfortable. And instead of being an adult and talking about it with him, I got drunk one night and had a breakdown. Not my finest moment, and I've apologized to both him and Kim about my behavior. Lee assured me nothing ever happened between them and that it was just workplace gossip. I completely believe him, and even if he did sleep with her, it's in the past and he's completely committed to me. After we moved in together, his contact with Kim dwindled to just the workplace and occasional get-together with mutual friends. Unfortunately, Kim was not so forgiving about my little immature moment. I didn't have the breakdown in public or around Kim, but Lee did tell her about it for some reason. I wasn't too happy about that, but I made it a point to try and take Kim out to lunch and drinks and apologize. I thought all was well, but apparently it's not. Over the last 2 years, Kim has been nothing but awful to me. If we're all out to dinner, she ignores me, rolls her eyes if I start speaking, will cut in front of me as I'm speaking to people like I'm not even there. Whatever. I get it. I tried to be nice, but I'm not her biggest fan either. What has really set me off is the fact that Kim is above Lee in management and is in charge of expansion. She has approached Lee multiple times about going to open a new branch of the company in a city that is a 3-hour flight from where we live. Now, opening a new branch for this company requires the person to live in that new city for at least 2 years. And she has put Lee's name in the running even though he has told her straight up he does not want to go. I'm ducking livid and, surprisingly, he is, too. But he doesn't see it as a slight towards me, just that she'd like someone experienced to open the new branch. And he's the most experienced in the company to do it, so it could be that, but, I don't know. I feel there's another motive as well. After all of this, Lee still wants me to try and be friends with her. I have told him that a friendship between us just isn't in the mix. I've tried everything to get her to like me, thrown her surprise birthday parties, moved her into a new apartment while she went back to her home state for an emergency. I even bought her a tour at her favorite distillery, all to no avail. I'm done trying. I've told him that I, in no way, want him to stop his friendship with her, but I would rather he not talk about our relationship with her, and that I'd rather not be in a room with her / have dinner with her unless there isn't a sizable crowd where I can pretend she's not there. I can deal with her at birthday / holiday events, but besides that, I really don't want to be around her. He's obviously hurt that we can't seem to get along, and he keeps trying to push me to be her friend. Apparently he still thinks that she needs more time to get to know me and see how sorry I was about a mistake I made 2 years ago that I've tried so hard to correct. So, my question is, how do I get Lee to understand that Kim and I will never be friends and that I really just don't want to be around her if I can manage it? Update. So it wasn't really popular and I didn't really respond in the thread, but I did read all the responses. I appreciate the time people took to reply and give their advice, as well as the people who DM'd me and really helped me figure out the situation. So, to start off, I talked to Lee to really get down to whether or not he did sleep with Kim. He swore again that it never happened and he would have no reason to hide it if it did. I asked him if maybe Kim had a thing for him that he didn't know about, and he thought about it and figured it could be true. I told him again why I didn't want to be her friend and how I didn't like the way she treated me. He wasn't aware of how bad it was, so I asked him to make a conscious effort to try and be more aware when we're hanging out together. He's very aloof about a lot of things. Makes me glad I made the first move in the relationship. So a week goes by and a couple of his buddies from work want to go out to dinner. We agree, and when we show up, Kim is there. She hugs Lee but then ignores me. I thought Lee missed it until he looked at me and gave me a raised eyebrow. Dinner goes on and Kim is doing her usual thing of ignoring me, rolling her eyes when I talk or just rudely interrupting me. When she went to the bathroom, Lee turned to me and said, "I definitely see it and I'm so sorry." So that was really nice to hear. As dinner was winding down, one of Lee's coworkers gets up to make a toast. He goes on and on about Lee being such a hard worker and how they're going to miss him when he moves to the new branch. I was shocked, so I just said, "What?" Without realizing I said it aloud. Lee was just as shocked and told them that he hadn't taken the job and he didn't want the job. That's when Kim said that he was one of the top 3 picked to go down. Lee was pissed. He got up to go get another drink and I went with him. When he found out that Kim put his name in the running, he went to the higher-ups and told them it was a mistake and that he was not interested. Which means Kim must have found out and talked the bosses into putting his name back in the running. We ended up leaving early and going home. I told him I'd support him if he wanted to go, but he is very much against going. He now sees why I didn't want to be friends with her and why my assumptions about her were completely true. He went back to work on Monday and asked to be moved to a new department that's not under Kim. He went to HR about Kim overstepping her boundaries, and he's even thinking about finding a new job where he doesn't have to interact with her. I'm so glad he finally saw what I saw and he's completely done with Kim. I'm excited to see how losing her will help improve our relationship in the future, and he promises to be more aware of how his friends treat me and to respect my wishes / not force a friendship on me if I don't want it. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.